For those still logging on, my name is Randy Zucker. So good to see you here this afternoon. I'm the interim film festival director for the New Jersey Jewish Film Festival, and we're so happy to have you today. We are recording this program for others to view, so please note that you'll be on mute, but we would love and encourage you to put as many questions as you like in the chat. I would like to give a special thank you to our film festival sponsors and community partners. Without your support, the festival definitely wouldn't be as successful and vibrant as it is today. I'd like to especially thank and acknowledge Sylvia and David Steiner, who have sponsored this pair of films, one of which we are discussing today, which is the short Broken Bird, which is followed by Honeymood. At this time, I would like to introduce one of our film festival co-chairs, Miss Abby Meth-Cantor, who will be moderating our conversation today and introducing our filmmaker. Abby, to you.
Hi, Randy. Thank you, and welcome to everybody. We're here. I had a low bandwidth notice, which scared me to death right now. So let's hope my bandwidth stays where it belongs. First, I want to introduce Rachel Harrison Gordon. And Rachel, you're muted, so you're eventually going to have to unmute yourself, although you don't yet. Rachel is a prime example of a local girl makes good. This is one of our own. She's originally from Greater Metro West, although she probably didn't know that. But she's from Metro West, actually. She has a very impressive resume. And as I just said to her, when I first saw her resume, I needed a little bit of interpretation to figure out exactly what she does. All I do know is that it's a very impressive resume. She has a lot of accomplishments, a lot of achievements. She's studied people from perspectives of journalism and government, through quantitative behavioral data and through people's stories. She has also worked as a producer of student films and in post-production on documentaries. The work she is involved in generally explores issues that challenge expectations of race, family, and addiction. Her work has included stints as a manager of mobile analytics within a consumer rights group at the New York Times, and as a Presidential Innovation Fellow under the Obama administration, exploring experiences of veterans upon return to civilian life. Rachel graduated from the University of Pennsylvania School of Engineering, where she studied mechanical engineering, and she is now a dual MBA, MFA candidate at New York University's Stern School of Business and Tisch School of the Arts. In short, Rachel is no slouch. Rachel, did I get that all right?
Oh, I'm flattered, but no, I'm just doing my best, but thank you.
Working. Broken Bird is Rachel's first film. I hope you've all seen it. The narrative centers on Birdie, a biracial girl raised by her Jewish mom in a New Jersey suburb, and her struggles with her dual identity as she spends a rare day with her African-American father while she's preparing for her bat mitzvah. Broken Bird has won numerous festival awards, including Jury Award for Best Short Film at the Bentonville Film Festival, and winner for Debut Director, congratulations, at the Indie Shorts International Film Festival. Broken Bird has been accepted at close to 50 film festivals for screening, and fewer than 10 of them are Jewish film festivals, to show you the wide scope of interest in her subject. And I don't know if any of you know this, originally we were going to screen Broken Bird at the 2020 Film Festival. We know what happened to that. So we're very happy that we had the opportunity to bring Rachel back. And again, welcome, Rachel. At last. Okay, let me start by saying, since we are the New Jersey Jewish Film Festival, of course, we're particularly interested in your background as a local Jersey girl. And as a New Jersey Jewish Film Festival, we are also very interested in your experiences growing up in the Jewish community and synagogue, local synagogue, which you'll tell us about. So please tell us how much the slice of Birdie's story that we see in Broken Bird parallels your own or reflect your own experience, or just tell us your experience without telling us how much overlap.
Sure. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And it is really nice when you speak about New Jersey and growing up, I see a lot of the faces that were part of that journey, which is really wonderful. So thank you for supporting then, now, and always. This story about Birdie is deeply influenced by my life. I remember when I was in film school and asked to make a short film, I had a hesitation of reaching inside and surfacing something so personal. I think there were a lot of things I hadn't yet processed. There's also just kind of a stigma in general, but at school of, you can't think of anything original. Why do you have to be egotistical and talk about yourself? And it's very kind of pejorative, even though no matter how quirky a story is, there's definitely some truth in it. So I just kept pursuing and had a community of people at school, my family, people like Canner Ricky, who I had written into the script, people like my mom, who is, fictionalized, she would like you to know, but definitely a community of people who saw me for the combination of influences that I was and am. And I think without that, life would have just been harder. I didn't really have, at the time of my bat mitzvah, the strongest relationship with my father. And I think you can expand upon that and say I didn't have a close relationship with Blackness in general. I didn't feel like I had enough exposure where I could really claim that as part of my identity. And I think going through your bat mitzvah of walking into adulthood and kind of announcing who you are, it was a really tricky time for me because I don't know if you ever really know. I think life is just like a continuing lesson, but it's especially difficult as a teenager to say, I know I'm introspective enough to know who I am and who I can be and feel totally confident about that. And I feel like the only person who I've met like that is the actor who played Birdie, because I thought she was just the most confident, so cool young lady who inspired me, but still showed that vulnerability of that experience of not quite knowing your footing. So I was just really glad to be put in touch with someone who reflects the story and related to the story so much.
We should say that to that extent, your story is Birdie's story. Your family structure, your father's African-American, your parents were divorced. And Cantor Ricky is Cantor Erica Lippith,
Yes.
who's Emerita at Oheb Shalom in South Orange. And can you talk just a little bit more about your experience specifically in Hebrew school or in the synagogue and with the Cantor, what she did for you, how she helped you?
Yeah, I think Cantor Ricky is probably the sole reason why I felt I could one day be close to a Jewish community, why religion, if it seemed accessible, is because of Cantor Lippith. It wasn't because of our male rabbi who I felt judged me, like not in the way God would, just in a sassy way of, you're a woman, you're Black, you are a bad Jew because you don't speak Hebrew well, because you aren't at temple 7 out of 7 days a week, because of certain metrics that I didn't feel like were associated at all with how you connected to faith or to people. I thought it was like the antithesis, and not to throw a bunch of shade publicly. And I hope I didn't say their name. Anyway, I just felt really grateful to have Cantor Ricky's voice, beautiful voice. I think through songs is where I first felt like this is an organic connection I forged with Temple. I mean, if you've heard her sing, she brings the house down. And it wasn't until I went to other temples that I realized that having a female cantor wasn't the default. I saw all these men up there with guitars and like, they're fine. But it was just such a jarring experience when I would go to other bar and bat mitzvahs and be like, oh, now another barrier that I kind of felt just took me a step back, because my association was like, men have the most powerful roles and women are shunted to the side, is how like his attitude was. And yet the person who's having the most impact was Cantor Ricky. The people kept coming back every day, every week, every holiday for her. And so did I. And I think identifying with a religion can be really hard as a kid, and you just kind of feel like you're doing all these things wrong. And so for a place where like you would meet with her one-on-one for the bat mitzvah, for like, okay, here's something that I feel to a certain extent I'm playing pretend at, she made it all feel real. And I appreciate that, because I can look back at that experience and be like, I remember being in such a place where I felt like it could be, I've gone through the motions, and it was my bat mitzvah. I came into an adult in some ways. And so there's other people there that, other faces, but I just remember it's like the faces of the other congregants, the faces of the people that worked in the kitchen, the people that would clean the building. Like those are the people that left an impact more than, and the head guy kind of scared me away, but she had to be in the film incorporated just in like the lessons of recording on a cassette tape, just like these artifacts that I still relate to and come to mind very viscerally of that experience. I wanted that captured. I wanted Cantor Ricky to do it. I wanted the Torah portion to have a significance in my world, in the protagonist's world, and she helped us figure out the right impact we could have with that. So I'm grateful. I told you I wear my heart on my sleeve. I get emotional.
That's fine. Has Cantor Lippitz seen the film?
She has, and she was there on our first day of shooting and kind of saved the day and helped us get that dance sequence, which I think is the key to this optimistic ending of resilience that we're going for. So like without her kind of laying down the law of making sure we could execute what we had permission to execute, she made it happen.
Did that come easily? I want to point out, I don't know if everybody noticed that part of the film was shot at Ohev Shalom, as Bertie is getting ready for her bat mitzvah, to go in for her bat mitzvah. That was intentional, I take it. You didn't want to have a different synagogue pose or act as Ohev Shalom. This was Ohev Shalom.
Yeah, I definitely could have. And I remember it felt kind of dirty even reaching out to other synagogues, but that's just part of the nature of it. You have to cover your bases. So I did, at one point I did go to another Hebrew school, but it was like affiliated with OHAB anyway, so it doesn't feel like I was cheating or anything. But yeah, I sent the emails, but I wanted it to be a place that I felt familiar, that had all those memories, that is beautiful, is extremely cinematic. I couldn't think of another place it should be. My grandparents' names are engraved in the wall in that building. That's, it's not nothing. So I'm really glad that I got permission and people were eager to have OHEB part of the film and part of film culture and be, an example of the relationship ongoing.
And hello, Cantor Lippitz, who just put in the chat room. It was our great honor to host this film. So welcome. So glad. So I'm going to jump around now because you bring up a lot of things. So first of all, as we, I want to talk more about Bertie's journey, which is not exactly your journey, but do you feel she was in the same place as she was beginning to go to her into her bat mitzvah. Now, I also wanted to ask about that bat mitzvah portion, which she says she tells her father she hates the bat mitzvah portion.
Mhm.
And I want to know, was it Parshat Matot?
Mhm.
And was that your portion?
It
And did you-
wasn't.
So
But
why did you choose that one as something that she would hate?
I think I felt, me, Rachel, felt very protective of my father, even though I had such anger towards him. And so I felt like in any religious text, it starts off with like, here is the liar. Here is the person sinning this way. And like, if you actually get through the rest of it, hopefully there's some lesson that, or like something good happens. But it's like, if you don't keep reading, sometimes it just seems like we're shaming these people. And I think that's why she hates it, is because she feels like she was given this portion that highlights, oh, your dad's a bad person. If someone says that they're going to do something, like they better do it. And she had been let down. She had been told people are going to follow through. And if you keep reading, it's about forgiveness. It's about understanding intention, about, at least that's my interpretation of it. And that's why I really loved it, because I think it captured the anxiety that she had over including him in her life, of what will it be looked, how will people look at it? What will it mean? What is he like? If he's done X, Y, and Z, does that mean he's a certain type of person? Very conclusive. I think a lot of passages can seem very static, like people aren't allowed to change and develop. And that's the fear when you have, a teenage interpretation of these very complex texts and don't necessarily have, the context in your own life to, understand them fully. This is Mika. He wanted to say hi.
Hello, Mika.
Oh, my sweet baby boy. Hi. You can't.
He is gorgeous.
Oh my gosh.
Interested in hearing the conversation. He wants to know what you're up to when you're not taking care of him.
She's like, Mom, it's blah, 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 blah.
It's very interesting preparing for these discussions. Oh, I thought he was about to say something and contribute to the
Yeah, it's like, I have a question.
soon. Those of us who conduct these discussions review the films. I mean, in the old days, you couldn't do that. But I rewatched the film, and it allows you to put a microscope on so many things. And I understand when you make a film, especially a short film, you are really, it's a snapshot. And, I don't know how many people would look up the Parsha. I tried to look it up based on the little bits that were in there. But it brings me to so much else that you put so much work and thought into, I presume, that kind of flash by on the screen. So I particularly was looking at the items that were in Bertie's room, the pictures, photos, there's an Olympics poster, ticket stubs, a ribbon from a science fair, Prairie Home Companion, one of my favorites. It was before your time, but Garrison Keillor I was a big fan. And a lot, the one that if you didn't see it, but it does make a lot of sense, the fortune cookie fortunes stuck to the wall. Because later Bertie and her father go for Chinese food. So I assume there's some connection there. And even down when he opens the trunk for you to pick a knockoff of a designer bag, the things that are in there seem to me very carefully chosen. So can you talk about that process of putting together the backdrop?
Absolutely. I think I realized it's part of my obsession with cinema is the details. Before I thought I would ever make anything, I would still I would buy DVDs, I'd watch the DVD, and then I'd watch the movie again with the director's commentary. And maybe they'd bring along a production designer or their editor or someone else who was super wise and would have these incredible insights. And not even always insights, just like a side story about a gag or some mistake that happened. And it just made everything seem so accessible. And I loved how passionate all the craft people who went into developing this were. And I think that's where like my detail oriented obsession came from. But I'm a big world builder. I knew there was a lot about her that we weren't necessarily going to learn because scenes had to be cut, because this story was originally a feature in my mind that had to be, as you said, made into a snapshot. And I wanted you to have this impression of her by getting to see what was in her nest. And we really built it like this cozy attic space of all of these things that she would inherit and bring home. And I liked that you saw, oh, she's probably good in school in some kind of STEM field, but it's not important to the plot, but it leaves an impression about who she is on you and makes her more real. I loved that. Most of that stuff was mine. So it felt very organic to be like, here's a fortune cookie I saved from one of those lunches, or yeah, here's the Prairie Home Companion show that my mom and I went to, or yeah, it just like all the things that I hoarded. It's like, that seems like teenage girl material. That makes sense. And the Olympics poster, I think, is probably one of the only things we purchased new. And it's because I loved the graphic of that bird. I just remember the illustration that they went with in the 90s. I love that. But yeah, I thought if it could be some kind of treasure hunt that just makes the experience deeper. What was so cool was we premiered the film in Berlin. That was really the only in-person festival we got to go to. But afterwards, two people came down and introduced themselves. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're from New York. It was so nice to hear NPR on the radio station. And I'm, I've never been to Germany before. I had a translator kind of being the liaison between me and the public. I'm like, I don't know if this film is like a really good fit. And people, not just from America, but it was such a nice, rewarding feeling that they appreciated that. So yeah, you'll always find little details, and they're in the script too. You'll see, Prairie Home Companion. You'll see all the details in there from the start.
Great answer. And the same question, basically the music that you used, Donna Summer, is Eretz Zavat Halal, which is about Israel, or maybe not. So, just about those two songs, can you say what kind of what was the process that led you to those two songs?
I personally, maybe this isn't true, but I think I grew up hearing a lot of disco music. I like a lot of it now, those artists. I also thought that it's an opportunity to subvert the idea of being bad. So back to the Torah portion of, is someone a liar? Are they bad? I thought the song Bad Girls is about a woman being like, you're calling me that and I'm badass. Like, yes, thank you. And so I liked being able to reclaim bad, some kind of judgment, as this powerful moment. The Nina Simone cover of that song in Hebrew was just like a chance coming together that was the perfect metaphor for what we were doing in this project of Blackness and Judaism, or just like ancient Hebrew texts coming together. And an Israeli student who had come, like midnight into the editing room, I was like, watch my cut. And she's like, have you heard this cover before? And I had not. We were on YouTube, and I think I just like lost it and cried and was so grateful that she helped find the perfect. I had heard that song before, but not sung by Nina Simone, not with her voice. And also when you talk about speaking Hebrew, it's one thing for an American to speak Hebrew. It's one thing for an American to speak like ancient Hebrew. It's another thing for my in-laws speaking from Israel, who speak just like slang Hebrew all the time. And so people found it amusing to hear her inflections, her accents. And it's like, she is allowed to say those words too. And not only is she, but she's like the best at it. So that just seemed like a perfect fit. And Land of Milk and Honey is what it translates to. That just sounded like such a beautiful Eden place to aspire to be. And it also involves the combination of two things coming together. And, you know, I think Birdie in the end merges everything to a tasty result. Beautiful, tasty result.
Very tasty. That's a way to describe it. So you married, your in-laws are Israeli.
Mhm.
I'm curious to know if you find common cause with Sephardi, you know, in Israel, there's still a kind of a cultural divide, and there's a movement for claiming, you know, the place in society or whatever of Sephardi Jews. And I was wondering if you feel that connection.
I feel very kind of disconnected to that, but
Color, people who identify as Jews of color, not just people who are African American and Jewish, but also from North Africa, those other kinds, Yemen.
yeah, I remember I spoke on a Q&A with Sephardic Jews, and it was just really interesting to hear the perspective of people who were like, we're brown and Jewish, and that's just like the default in our community. And that was kind of just a shock to me of all my experiences being like literally the only one until another family came, and then I was one of three or they had kids, so one of five, plus another, you know, people who worked in the building that I counted as, you know, 1, 2. But it was really interesting to hear the overlaps of the ways that people could still feel isolated from religion, how still people are made to feel on the outside. I think what I can't empathize with as much as I would like to is being born in a place that's conflicted over who it belongs to. I just have no way of feeling what that could be like, and the prejudices you form, the anger you form, the need to be protective, how it's all related, and how you could be a really good person and still have very intense thoughts about another culture. It's, you know, what trauma does. I think that's something I've since being more in touch with Israelis, really trying to grasp the history and how it's always playing its role in present society. I think, you know, you don't have to look far to see people being prosecuted.
That the Ethiopian community in Israel is also a group that you might feel a kinship to. And
Yeah.
I wanted to know also about hair, because you open with a visit to a salon, and you know, it's a big source. It's a touch point in the African American community, and how that came about and what's your relationship to it. And I should point out that for a lot of people, you know, curly dark hair was also a Jufro, you know. So it's kind of a cross-cultural marking. So
yeah. I remember a lot of films by Black people that I know have some influence of hair. And the comments that we receive is, can you do this movie without talking about hair? I got that comment, lots of people did. And it's like, sure, but I'm not having all these actors walking around bald. This hair cannot be taken away from this person as easily as like covering it. It is in their soul. It is in their heart. It is how people see them. It is how they see themselves. Every mirror, every reflection, it is a reminder of who you are and what attachments that comes with. So I was like, you can go away and close your eyes when the hair stuff happens. But what's actually shocking to me is how today I have the same insecurity about getting my hair done as I did when I was a kid. And you'd be like, how is that possible with the internet and with just, how is that possible? But I have a girlfriend who took off work, planned her whole day to go to Harlem, which is like one of the meccas of hair. Like if I wanted to look like I was on the Oscars red carpet, I would go to Harlem because I would know this is the look. This is exactly what I want. I can specify without shame. You're not going to roll your eyes and say it takes too long. And she went and she was told that they didn't have time for her. And my heart broke for her because it's 2022. She had to do all of these logistics to show up there, in addition to stealing herself for an experience. And it's not in vanity. It's not like we all just want to like be sexy or whatever. It's we want to feel like we have control over our identity, and then it's not at the whim of everyone else, literally everyone else. And that's why it's such, if you don't know how to take care of your own hair, it feels like such a failure. It feels like a disconnect from your culture. It feels like you're just at a loss. Now that I have a child, it's like, what do I have to pass on? What is legacy? And you saw my son, so there's also this complex thing I'm going through of having essentially like a white baby, which is what one of my next films is about. But that hair sequence was something I lived through, of my mom finding a woman who could do hair, who we trusted, who we loved as a person, who took care of me, had kids around. It was like a lovely way to spend a weekend morning. But that was after going to the salon in our town that had one Black lady, and you had to get like the appointment with her. And it was such a bizarre feeling to be like, well, clearly I'm here for like the other Black person. Or people that burned my scalp that were used to Puerto Rican hair, which is closer, but still not Black hair. It just, all of these failed experiences of that you can't get back. You can't just recover. So hair's a part of it. And the fact that Birdie wanted to go out there with her natural hair, and she doesn't really know, like she's trying to wrap it. That's not how you wrap hair. She's so naive about how to do it. And yet she's still like, I don't care. And that's who I want to be still. So hair's part of it.
So we've had a couple of comments of pretty much reinforcing what you're saying, Randy's. The hair is part of our identity and adds a layer of empowerment. And so, and personally, it adds a layer of empowerment. Cantor Lippitz, Cantor Ricky, said it's astonishing to know that a gazillion hours of filming must be culled and edited to create just a few minutes. That, I think she made that comment when we were talking about the minute details of Birdie's room and the other aspects of the set design, but leads us to talk about, this is just nuts and bolts. Why a 10-minute film? Was that your vision, or based on what you had in the can, so to speak? Mm-hmm. This is the best way possible.
I think it's a combination of time where you could really tell something impactful without diluting it with things that might actually take away from it. But the director's like, this is the core of the film. I think 10 minutes lends itself organically to dissecting exactly what questions you want to be asking. I also think that from a marketing perspective, they're easy to program. That's it. We're told at school, so please correct me and I will correct my durations. Shoot sweet. But I think it's easier to program a 10-minute film than a 20-minute film, and it's easier to watch. I've watched some 20-minute films that really do feel like they could have been half as long, and as a result, half as expensive. So I think it was like, if I'm not going to make this into a feature, which it will be one day, I really want to find the moment that I can express so much about this person and their journey. And my dad, to clarify, showed up to my bat mitzvah, but this had to capture her estranged relationship with him, how she overcomes that, how even if it continues to happen to a certain degree, she will be okay. And you just have to select certain beats for that to happen. And I think, what is it, like 9 minutes and 50, including credits, which I think that's like a minute long, you know, not too, I think it's worth it. I would add more dancing. Yeah.
So, as Randy says, it's content, not length, that counts. And yet, I looked at this and I got the impact and thought it was beautifully crafted, but I want to know more.
Yeah.
Any chance that you will bring Birdie back or a different Birdie?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the aspects of the feature version, which is a completed script going through revisions, is I wanted to see more from the father's perspective. You'll see how Birdie's journey and her father's journey are actually growing up very similar, and you'll understand a little bit more why they need each other so bad, and also why they keep missing their connections to each other. So yeah, you're totally going to see her. I have some differing opinions about how many different time periods there should be, but you'll likely see her in high school and high school / college, in addition to bat mitzvah age, but we'll see. I'm defending that. That's what I'm sticking with, but
You got to move fast on Indigo Hubbard Salk, who plays Birdie beautifully, to come back. Maybe,
yeah. Since we filmed, she had her quarantine bat mitzvah on the stoop of her Brooklyn apartment, which is like so cool. These city kids are just so cool. But she does say that part of the reason why she wanted it was because of her experience with the film. Plus, she's like a sister and friend for life. So there's, I put her in a hair commercial, because I'm interested in that. And she, was spectacular. And yeah, if I could work with her as much as I can, as much as she wants to, I'll have her.
So Cantor Lippitz is saying that you have enough footage that you didn't use to make a longer film, another film.
Yeah. And I feel like the mom was always underdeveloped. If we're gonna, start poking holes in the film, which we don't have to for too long, but I do feel like that always felt like something that wasn't quite right. And what actually needed to happen was her scenes needed to be deleted in order for her to seem like she has a greater impact. It was just the opposite of what I expected to correct that, but that's also something I hope we can revisit. Yeah.
Speaking of your parents, in the film, Birdie's parents, but also your parents, this is a semi-autobiography. We all knew that from the beginning and all the press information. Were your parents involved? I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about what your relationship with your father is now or through the years. If you said it was somewhat different, but if you want to talk about that, or just how they reacted to your making such a personal film.
Mm-hmm. I think I hid the script not even hid the script, but I think just like as a writer, period, I don't like to share. It's not productive at all, but I don't like to share things until it's like, oh, this is my first draft, but it's the third or fourth and it has no typos and it's perfect. I'm like, oh, I just like whipped this up. I guess that's what I'm trying to convey, even though everyone understands the nature of the beast. And I've gotten better, and I have a writing group that I kind of just like, I'm naked and bare, just take me as I am, which is a much better place to be in. But I think I just didn't want I wanted to be really protective of both my parents. I wanted to be protective of the experience, and I knew that it wasn't going to be exactly truthful to the order things happened or how they happened, but I knew that on all three, mom, dad, me's part, the emotions were genuine, that our intentions of what we wanted at that time were being reflected clearly. So yeah, I withheld it a little bit, but they were both on set, and my mom was a caterer, which was like is still something people talk about, like that those tacos. Like everyone was really happy. And I really just felt this surreal, beautiful moment of my mom meeting my film mom, meeting film me, and just all like eating tacos. It's just really sweet to see and encouraging, because my mom was there through my engineering career, through my data science career, through being at the White House and being like in all these incredible places, meeting wonderful people I looked up to. And still she knew that I wasn't happy. And when I found this filmmaking program, she was like, go for it. And so it was really cool to see her part of my first project. And my dad, similarly, he was on set for the day we were shooting the handoff between the parents, which I thought was fitting. And he had a super emotional moment. We both did, kind of hugging each other behind the monitor, of just like, wow, all those times of that happening and recognizing the importance it had in both of our lives. That was just pretty crazy. And then once he came to NYU to see a first cut, and I think he was also a little too overwhelmed by emotion. And it's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And I look out and he's like, so I just feel really grateful that they could be a part of it and see. And my, like, so many people, Canner's in it, her voice is in it, my stepdad is in it, like anyone. Oh, like the whole restaurant scene, those are all my classmates from Penn, and just donated their time, and my neighbors and some family friends. Like we just took over that place. It was a family affair. And I think that's what I want every movie I make to be like. I want you to see people you recognize. New Jersey will be a character in every film that I make, in people, place, atmosphere, just tone. I think like some of the best movies to me that I resonate with are by New Jersey filmmakers, because they have this almost underdog attitude, and then they're also just better. So they like have more to prove, and then they surpass the expectations. So I hope I can be just like them.
As a fourth generation New Jerseyan, I applaud your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Damn straight.
you name some other influences on you as a filmmaker? I mean, you're going forward, you're going to continue making films.
Yeah. I mean, just based on what we were saying, like Kevin Smith, I wish I could think of more like New Jersey filmmakers, but his movie Clerks, I think, is a really good example of he was a fan of Richard Linklater, and who I'm also, but you just can see he was a fan of him, made his movie Clerks for no money. Where the place that he worked, you can drive past all of the sets where they filmed. It made making film seem so accessible and so good, and about everyday people. It was just like that perfect combination of quality and relatability, and just unique in its, I know this Joe Snow. So that's like, I'm really inspired by that. But it's like any female filmmaker around my age will probably say Sofia Coppola, so much that like I roll my eyes at myself. But I think what I feel like I would be the Black Sofia Coppola for people who aren't rich. And I love her aesthetic. And that's like, I love what that version of her films would look like. Like she has this film Somewhere, which is one of my favorite films, which is a father-daughter story. And the father is some like super actor, and he gets his daughter for the day, and they have like a crap relationship. And the things that they get up to, it's very quiet, you just observe. And I relate to it so much. It's like, no, my dad didn't stay at the Chateau Marmont, but there's a version of that that I lived. And you could say that about almost all her films. And so she's a huge source of inspiration.
This probably should have been my first question, but thank you, by the way, for sharing all of that. It's very interesting.
I hope so.
Why bird? Why birdie? Why broken bird?
Mm-hmm. Bird, I was called a baby bird. It was my nickname. I think, it has very easy references to freedom and flying and stepping out on your own. I think that why broken bird interested me, because back with like labels and things seeming permanent, I think broken definitely seems like you want to give that label to someone, to discard them, to throw them away. And I wanted to prove that like these people who had gone through so much aren't broken, and would resent being called that, and are resilient past that. So I liked having the title be that. It's like, it feels really heavy, but when you know what it's about, hopefully it has the flight that a bird would.
And you do see a lot of beautiful flying birds, so it counters the image of the broken bird.
Yeah.
So you talked about your future plans. Is there something we should be looking forward to for the next film festival? Or
Oh wow, I would love that. I am supposed to shoot something in June, and I'm still trying to work out. It's like starting from scratch. You just got to get used to starting from scratch a lot, or being like, that thing didn't happen, now for something totally different. So now actually, and Mom, I'm glad you're here because you can tell Marty is I'm thinking about having a short where my stepdad Marty takes my baby to the racetrack, and it's about the day that they have together. It's fictionalized, but the premise is the stepdad is kind of using the kid to appear as a hi, almost as a front, like he's up to some criminal behavior, but he's like, oh, nobody's gonna suspect me if I have an adorable baby. Yeah, exactly, right on cue. So hopefully he can keep that up and get camera ready.
your mother's thrilled. She's the best audience right there.
Oh, he's waving back. You see Grandma? Grandma?
You see all the faces?
Yeah, there's a nice grid of everybody.
You see Grandma.
Who's that? Oh my goodness. Well, I don't mean for him to distract, but also he's a huge source of inspiration. And I was mentioning to Abby and Randy before that I've been doing a lot of animated writing for an animated short, an animated TV show that are both kind of about motherhood. One is set in Las Vegas and has the interesting aspect of these interesting jobs that kind of get transformed once you become mothers. There's people in sex work, there's people in prison, there's people who run casinos. Do you want to hear the other? No sounds.
I'm sorry, Rachel. No one is listening to you anymore. We're only just
That's okay. I'm not even blah blah blah.
being entertained by the baby.
Where did you even get this? What is this? So yes, he's been a huge source of inspiration, and which is good because I don't know how people make this work. But we're figuring out.
Proud, actually. He knows he's inspiring you.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody, let me see if there's any other questions in the chat room. I think we covered a lot of territory. And no, you don't want to go. He wants to give his version of it, right?
We could do another hour.
So thank you. And this was so enlightening. And thank you for Broken Bird. And we really look forward to your future creations. This is your supreme creation. Give your husband a little credit too. And
Yes.
And again, thank you for joining us. And we really look forward to more from Rachel Harrison Gordon. Thanks.
Thank you for.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you so much, Abby. We hope to see you back very soon with your next project.
Me too. Keep going. We've all
All right, keep going. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you.